All right, we're going to continue with our media availabilities here at Phoenix Raceway in advance of Sunday's Can-Am 500. We are now joined by Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 FedEx Ground Toyota. Denny, you are 5th on the playoffs leaderboard right now as you go after that final spot in the Championship 4. Just talk about your approach as you come here to Phoenix this weekend.
Same as any other weekend. We come and try to win, and obviously, you know, we would probably, you know, as the race plays out, you got to see where you stand, where your competitors are, whether you need to hedge your strategy towards having to go all out for a win or finish badly, or you just try to finish the best you can and hope your competitors are far enough behind. So I think it's tough to say what the right thing to do is, but you know, we'll just throughout the next 2 days just try to make our cars faster and faster, and if we can do that, then it'll take care of itself.
All right, we're going to open up to questions here. We're going to start right here with Jeff, right in the middle.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Denny, can you point your way in realistically, like straight up against Keselowski without him having trouble? Do you feel like through stage points and a finish you can get in just straight up that way?
I mean, we beat him by 15 points last week, and he only finished 2 spots behind us. So, I mean, it's possible for sure. It just depends on how the first part of the race plays out, honestly.
All right, we're going to go to Dave, Jenna, and Wolfgang.
Dave Coleman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Denny, you've been teammates with Matt for 5 years and certainly knew him for many years before. Do you have any great insight, any interesting stories, anything that I can use to embarrass him, anything like that?
No, not really. He doesn't like to be embarrassed. So, you know, he's just a great guy, and, you know, it's unfortunate that he doesn't have a ride, and, you know, he definitely deserves one, which is a shame. But, you know, it's today's NASCAR world, you know. It's just, you know, being talented and playing at a high level at this sport doesn't guarantee you playing time. In other sports it does, because it takes financial backing to do it. So that part of it's tough. I'm sure that he would still like to run more. I know that he has a desire to still race, and we know that he can compete for race wins every single week. And unfortunately, a guy like that will be sitting at home next year.
We'll go to Jenna, Wolfgang, and Claire.
Denny, when you guys were putting together the stages last year and you were working with NASCAR and figuring out the kinks, did you guys know, or was it expected that someone would clinch a spot in the finale based on what they could do through the regular season?
I think we ran simulations, and obviously we didn't predict Truex winning like 40 stages or whatever he's won, because it's just an abnormal type year. You just don't see it that often. But in the end, you look at it and it's like, that guy should be rewarded. I mean, as long as he doesn't blow up and do something, you know, to have 2 catastrophic races, why shouldn't he be part of the best 4 going to Homestead? And when you look at the cars that have clinched, it's probably been, other than the 42, the 3 other best cars throughout the entire year. So I think it's worked in that sense. I mean, I hate it for ourselves because we're performing at a high level through the playoffs, and we may not get rewarded for it, but it's meant to be a win and you're in type format. So we know that in the future, next year, whatever, I mean, not that we could really done anything more throughout the regular season, but it's so much more important to win races and get those bonus points. And I mean, trust me, I'd like to have my Darlington win back as well, because that was points left on the table.
We'll go to Wolfgang, Claire, Bob.
Denny, most of the time, or nearly every year here in Phoenix, the race is under very hot temperatures. Is this maybe an issue during the race? I think it's maybe easier for yourself and also for the machinery, for the equipment to run under cooler temperatures.
You know, I don't think that this racetrack is as temperature sensitive as other racetracks. we were just looking at notes about what to think about for qualifying, and I just don't think it changes that much. I don't know that this race track or this race in particular has been hard on equipment in years past. I think it's just about having a fast car.
Go to Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. With one person getting in and so many drivers trying into that final spot, how crazy do you think it will be at the end? And what sort of judgment calls do you think you'll all have to make? And where do you determine that line is?
I think, the interesting things that could play out is teammates staying out or pitting, things like that possibly could put you behind. Who knows how it's going to turn out? I mean, honestly, there's 5 of us that probably feels like we need to, or there's 4 of us that need to feel like we need to win to get in. Like I say, until the first half of the race plays out, we don't know what we need to do. I think we'll have a better idea after those first 2 stages. But then I think, it's what strategy do you take for that final restart? Do you stay out or do you pit? It definitely has a potential to be pretty crazy on restarts, knowing that you have some agendas out there that will be a win or nothing.
Given what you've been through recently, how far do you go? Where's that line?
You do everything you can. I mean, I sensed how important it was in the first race of this round, much less the last race of this round. So I don't know, how much different you would do. I mean, you try to do everything you can to win. I mean, it's you try it. There's several different ways to do it. I mean, we've seen anywhere from guys just winning races to something like Ryan Newman did with 1 lap to go a few years ago. I mean, it's drivers become desperate when you know that this could be your final lap contending for a championship.
We'll go to Bob and then Mike and Chris.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Do you feel like you have a car that can win after a practice, and maybe when during the race will you know whether you can potentially dictate your own strategy as far as going for the win?
So far from what I've seen, I think we have a car that can win. I think that we had a very good practice today. We didn't spend much time in qualifying trim, but when we did, we went straight to the top. So I think that definitely the car has good speed in it. We still got some work to do in race trim, but we're pretty close to where I need it to be. But yeah, I mean, we honestly need to see how many points the 2 car gains at the beginning of the race. I mean, that's really the key for us knowing where our strategy goes for the second half of the race.
We'll go to Mike and then up here to Chris.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. This is not really a big track, but it's not Martinsville either. Is it still a situation where, though, kind of anything goes on the last lap or 2?
I think you'll see, drivers doing desperate things for sure. I mean, to what extent, I'm really not sure. I think it just depends on the players that are in the game at that point, and how late in the race it is.
We'll go to Chris and then to Dustin.
Chris Knight, CatchFence.com. Denny, with the importance of stage racing we're seeing becoming a factor towards the end of the season, do you think that offers a potential for stage racing to be more in, racing better next spring or in the summer, knowing that how crucial those stage points were? Because it seems like some of the drivers just and the teams talked about that they didn't see the importance of stage racing until almost it was too late.
Well, I knew that we did everything we could to get stage points because we wanted to be as high in the regular season points as possible. So we are always trying to gain stage points. I think we just struggled with speed for most of the year, and so we weren't able to capitalize getting enough stage wins. I think we only had 3 stage wins throughout the entire year. That's just, it's just not enough. You got to have more than that to be competitive this late in the season if you're not going to win races. So I think I don't know what we could do different other than just really try to be better through the regular season, be faster to give ourselves an opportunity to win stages.
We'll go to Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Last year in this race, with about 50 laps to go or so, Mike kept you out. You didn't pit when everybody else did, so you had to try to hold people off on older tires. How challenging is that to do here? This is the same tire. Could you do it? And I know everything's circumstantial, but could you do it and have better success this time around if put back in that situation?
Well, the 31 car won the race on that strategy. He had the proper amount of cars behind him to make it work. Things worked out perfectly in turns 1 and 2 for him, or the 42 and maybe the 17 got into each other. They gave him enough gap, but I don't know. The reason we had to stay out at that time is we had a flat tire and lost all of our track position with 100 to go. So we had to do something to get that track position back, and that's why we stayed out. I thought it actually worked pretty good. Once things leveled out, I think we stabilized 7th, 8th position, somewhere in that range. But we certainly had a winning car here in the spring. We just got bugged with flat tires. We had one in qualifying, one right towards the end of the race, and that kind of dictated our strategy. So I think you try to run as fast as you can, lead every lap you can for the first part, see where you stand, and then work your strategy off that.
We're going to wrap up with Jonathan.
Denny, if you think back to 2010, I think this place left a pretty bad taste in your mouth. If you could come in here and either get a win in advance to Homestead or point your way into Homestead, would that kind of take a little bit of that taste out of your mouth? Do you seek validation at this track since that race?
Not really. I mean, I don't hold a grudge. It's not the racetrack's fault, 2010. I mean, we were dominant here in 2010. We just had bad fuel calculations, I guess you could say, and it just didn't work out for us. And so I definitely don't hold any grudges to the racetrack. I love coming here. It's been a great racetrack for me. I've raced my way in at this track after 2010, so the score's probably even on that.
All right, Denny, thank you for joining us. Good luck on Sunday. All right, we're going to continue with our media availabilities in advance of Sunday's Can-Am 500 here at Phoenix Raceway. We're now joined by Chase Elliott, driver of the number 24 Hooters Chevrolet. Chase, you are currently 7th on the playoffs leaderboard, looking to get that final spot in the Championship 4 at Miami. Why don't you just talk about what your approach is this weekend here at Phoenix?
Our task at hand is pretty simple. We have to win the race to move on next week. Everybody in here knows that. We know that, and we're going to try to attack the weekend as best we can. Hopefully give ourselves a chance to do that Sunday afternoon, and see what happens. So that's pretty straightforward what we have to do with the situation we're in now, and it's not the most ideal situation, but if you were able to pull it off, it'd be a lot of momentum moving into next week. So we'll give it our best shot and see what happens.
All right, we're now going to open it up to questions. We'll start with Jonathan, go to Claire, and then go to Kathy.
Jonathan Merriman, NASCAR.com. Chase, you just talk a little bit about your confidence level being the fastest Hendrick Motorsports car for the past 3 or 4 weeks, coming in here and having to have that win to make it?
I think that as being a teammate at HMS, we all try to help each other to go fast, and we all sit in our meetings and we try to lend information and things that'll help all of us. Obviously, when the race starts, we're all kind of on our own in a lot of ways as to try to beat the other three, or whoever. You're trying to beat everybody, and those three are also in the field. So it's not just about beating them, but I think that we all have work to do, and I think that we have the right ideas and we know the direction we need to go. It's just a matter of executing it and getting there and putting an entire race together. It's more than just having fast cars. It's about putting a race together, having the strategy play your way. Some of that stuff you can do really good, and some of it you have to be, kind of have a good day and get lucky with for it to really work out in your favor. So hopefully we can do all those things Sunday and it'll work out in ours, and hopefully hopefully that'll be the case. But we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll go to Claire, Kathy, and then Bob.
Claire Beeline, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. This is a crazy race often at Phoenix, and there's a crazy situation, with the cutoff, and one guy gets in if there's a win. How far do drivers go? What is your moral compass as far as the end of this race? And surely it's going to get crazy.
Well, I think it depends on who's where and what the situation is and what guys are racing for what spots. And, we've seen that here before. I think if you're in a position that, it's going to help you, I think you got to be pretty aggressive. I think there's definitely a line as to how far you want to push it. But, if, again, the flip side of that is if you're racing for 10th, I'm not going to, put myself in a bad spot to run 9th, So I think it just kind of all depends on where you are and what situation you're put in and what it means to you to have that extra spot.
Kathy Brown, pitting outside the box. When you're in the race, particularly this weekend, are you going to have anybody on your team reporting back to you where other drivers are? Are you just going to go out and, run your own race, maybe wait to the closing laps? Are you that type of driver, or do you just want to go out there and not think about it? I
don't request information like that. Typically, if we were on the bubble and we were having to race guys, sure, they would let me know, hey, you're either in or out. And obviously moving forward means you're going to be closer to being in, and moving backwards means you're going to be closer to being out. But, for us, it's pretty simple. You either win or we're not a part of the 4 next week. So, the points calculations this week are really irrelevant to us. And they're not to a lot of other guys, but to us they are. So it sounds simple, just a matter of going to do it.
We'll go to Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Can you compare the stress and the pressure of of your situation now versus leading late in the Daytona 500, wondering whether you're going to run out of fuel?
Yeah, that's a good question. It seems like the Daytona 500 was yesterday. We were just talking about this morning and just how fast this year's gone by. But I would say similar. I think it's definitely similar. Being leading the closing laps of that race, not really knowing what was going to happen, and having a shot to win the Daytona 500. Obviously one of our biggest events. That could have been a huge day, but also right now is an important part of our season. A championship is huge, and being able to race for one is an opportunity any driver would want. So. Fortunate to currently have had opportunities to do both and have an opportunity to compete for a championship. Still do have an opportunity. It's more than I could say a year ago. So, although some disappointments there at Daytona were definitely there, and there's nothing I can do about that now. We still have a chance to go to Homestead next week, and we'll try our best to do that.
Do we have any additional questions for Chase? Up here to Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Chase, it's often human nature to think, what if? For somebody like yourself who says, you're in a position where you've got to win, that's something you haven't done yet at this level, you've come so close so many times this year, how tough is it to not think what if in terms of could have scored a win, how things might have been different?
You can play the game, I guess, of what ifs, but unfortunately, for our circumstances, we don't. This is a sport of do's and don'ts, and we have not. And I've said that before, and it's just the facts. What happened last week, it has, or a month ago, or the beginning of the season, or having an opportunity to win and not. It's nothing that you can change now. I think you just have to understand whatever position that you were in and hope that you learn something from that experience to know that if you're ever in that position again, you can change the outcome. And I think sure there's disappointments that have come along with that and with that learning curve, but I think that you just have to understand that you can't change it, and you hope that you can change the outcome the next time it rolls around, if it ever does.
We'll go back to Bob and then up here to Lee.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. From your experience last year and experience this year, how much, if at all, did the racing change once you got to the playoffs? And was that surprising to you, or any different than just seeing the intensity from going from Xfinity to Cup?
Yeah, definitely different from Xfinity to Cup. My 2 years in Xfinity, as you know, the point system was different than what it is now. So we were racing for an entire season's worth of points. So completely different ball game than what we have to work with on this level. my first year in Cup was the first chance I had to ever work with a reset or work with a reset in points towards the end of the year. So definitely different for sure. The intensity picks up. I can definitely say, I think, as the playoffs start. And, I think teams pick up intensity. Teams are pushing things harder with the cars. Guys are, less lenient on track to certain situations, which, as they should be. I mean, we're all trying really hard. So I think it's expected, and it's definitely there. So I can agree with you. I think the intensity picks up, and I think it, increases as the weeks roll along, and depending upon what situation you're in with points and how you stack up, it can be either more or less intensified for you and your team.
Is it something that like you and Ryan Blaney and young guys have to get used to or adjust to?
I don't think so. I mean, it's the same for everybody, and I guess fortunately for me, while being in Cup, I've never really been used to anything else. So it's kind of what I've always seen. So I don't necessarily think so. I've watched it on TV for years with the old reset with 10 to go. So it's nothing that's so new that you don't understand or you're not at least thinking about. So no, I think for me, I've always my 2 years here have been a part of it and have seen it the way it currently sits, and I think that's probably the best thing about being new to something is you don't necessarily know an old way.
Go to Lee.
To kind of follow up on that, what lessons have you learned throughout this year, throughout your first entry into the playoffs, that you'll take and be even better next time, so you're really not in this crunch kind of situation?
Well, this is my second time in the playoffs, but I do think that I learned some things last year. Like I said a minute ago, we're still a part of it right now, and that's more than I could say a year ago. So I think we have gotten better from that standpoint. I think we've run these last 8 weeks probably better than we've run the entire season. So I think that's encouraging to know that we have the kind of pace that it takes to go and compete for wins. We have the kind of execution, we have the pit stops, and we have all the things that it takes for it to happen. It hasn't, but I think we have the things that it takes to do so. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is, I look at last year, and I think there was a lot of opportunity last year. We had a great car at Charlotte to advance there in that race. Ended up getting in a wreck. So I looked at last season and just saw a lot of missed opportunity, and I kind of look at the beginning of these playoffs the same way. Throughout the first 8 weeks, we've missed some great opportunities that were there to help us move forward. So I've learned a lot. I've also learned that I don't want to miss out on those opportunities moving forward, and obviously I'm going to try everything I can do to not, if you ever have the chances down the road.
Any final questions for Chase? Chris?
At ChrisKnight, Chase, no matter what happens on Sunday, is there going to be any satisfaction to know that you've had a solid season and something to build on for 2018?
That's tough because, the opportunities we've had, as I said a second ago, over these first 8 weeks were tremendous. And, it'd be disappointing to not make it for sure, to know how we've run in the playoffs and to know that we have competed with some of the guys that have made it in, or are currently working their way in for a lot of the season. And we've run with them at a lot of the races. They've won more races than us, but we've run with them a lot of the times throughout the season. So I think that's pretty disappointing if you don't make it to know that much. But there has been some solid pieces to the season, but I don't think it would be satisfying if we leave here not a part of it next week, to know that we've run like we have these last 8 weeks and to not be a part of the show.
All right, Chase, thanks for joining us. Good luck on Sunday.
Thanks.